Okay, looks like we are in. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's session of UPSC Buffet by Gallant IAS. So, let's get started. First of all, I'll tell you a few things about this particular session, that we have been discussing the questions from 2021 up until 2024. So, we have got a lot of insights and we were able to identify the recurring themes from those questions. Now, I'm going to do a complete mix-up of questions from 2015 to 2020. Not paper wise, but a mix of those things, and we could find the themes that are being repeated, and that includes exact same questions being repeated. So I'm reiterating again and again, going through the PYQs is gonna be the most rewarding thing that you are supposed to do when you're writing prelims, especially. And the case is the same for mains only, but prelims, the reward is next level. So the return on investment is very high. So stick to our course, stick to our videos, and I'm really sure that you will get some more insights upon how to decipher these PYQs and how to arrive at those answers when we are facing the upcoming prelims, whether it be 2026 or 2027. So I really hope that you stick through it, and yeah, let's get started. So we are going to master the Indian polity through PYQs. Yeah, that's how I want to put it, but let's see whether we actually do it. First of all, first question, which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporates protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination? To answer this question, first of all, we could use the logic, but the logic is not that suited for this particular question. That is there, but we can do it. Then secondly, we need to have an idea about fundamental rights, and the way we study fundamental rights actually matters. That is, fundamental rights has got 6 fundamental rights, and among them, which of the articles mention which of the things, and you have to make a connection between these two, because that's the reason why this question becomes a little tricky. But there is an easy way to study it, and I'll tell you how. First of all, let's go by the logic method. So, right against untouchability, meaning it's a form of discrimination. First of all, it's a form of discrimination, and it kind of violates one's right to life with dignity. So it can be possible. Okay. So right against untouchability is there. Right against exploitation. Okay. If you know what's right against exploitation, that is Article 23 and 24. Child labor, human trafficking, bonded labor, things like that. That comes under exploitation. So untouchability, there is no element of exploitation as such. It's a form of discrimination. Then right to freedom. We can say that it's right to freedom when Article 21 is considered right to life and liberty under Article 21, which comes under the umbrella of right to freedom. So we can consider that. Okay, fine. Right to constitutional remedies, we definitely know it has nothing to do with untouchability or anything. It's mostly regarding writs and the right that actually gives powers to the fundamental right, that one can approach the court for any violation of their fundamental rights. Then right to equality. Right to equality, right against discrimination. These both things are synonymous. As in, equality means lack of discrimination, but at the same time, it's not hardcore equality we are talking about. There is positive equality and negative equality. In India, we follow the positive approach where there is equal protection of law. So right to equality on its base, meaning that there should not be any sort of discrimination, and untouchability is a clear case of discrimination, and that's how we can arrive at this particular answer. Okay, with pure logic only, without knowing much, just having an basic idea about these rights and not knowing the articles or anything, we can easily arrive at this answer. But the issue is that this particular approach is useful because this is the level 1 of approach where we logically try to decipher things. But for polity, especially fundamental rights, getting our facts right is the way to go. And by fact, I mean you don't have to go through every single minute details, but there are particular fundamental rights that are more important than others. For example, Article 19, Article 21, obviously, and we have discussed that in the previous year question paper. That is last day's discussion also. We did that. So right to equality and right to freedom. Right to freedom, and in that Article 21 and 19 are particularly important. Okay, keep that in mind. It's very important. Then go behind the other, followed by right to equality, then right against exploitation, cultural and educational rights, things like that. So that's how you should be studying it. So basic thing is, you need to know the article. Right against untouchability is explicitly mentioned in the Constitution under Article 17, and you need to know that which all articles comes under right to equality. It's 14 to 18. So right to equality contains articles from 14 to 18. So meaning those 5 articles belong to right to equality. And let's have a look at it. This kind of helps. So if you have not started reading about fundamental rights, let's start from here. This is how we should be using PYQs. That okay, if you are going to start something, look at the question, then look at what have been asked, then look at the article and go by that. Follow a basic structure, that is, you need to go complete the fundamental rights and use the PYQs to guide you better. Otherwise, if you just go through article 15, right to equality, everything, it's not going to work, or it's not going to be really helpful in solving questions. So that is there. So article 14, equality before law and equal protection of law. I have said that what's the difference between these two. Equality before law treats everybody equally in front of law. It doesn't give any sort of nuanced approach to anybody. It's basically straightforward approach of law. But equal protection of law is positive in nature, because it treats unequal people. It doesn't treat the unequals equally. For example, if a person with disability will be treated differently than a person without a particular different disability or any sort of disability. So that is there. So that's called equal protection of law. But at the same time, there is equality before law. If a person with disability commits a heinous crime, he or she will be given the same punishment as like anybody else. That's equality before law. So we follow equality before law and equal protection of law. Why are we providing equal protection of law? For the welfare. It is having a welfare underpinning. Then prohibition of discrimination. Equality is possible only when there is discrimination, that's deep down societal discrimination within the state, and state should formulate policies, and the philosophy of the state should be to not discriminate. But at the same time, this is not a hardcore concept as in discrimination, as in nobody will be discriminated or anything. We have got reservation particularly under 15 and 16. 15 for education and 16 for employment. So discrimination again doesn't mean that it's everybody will be treated equally, and irrespective of your race, gender, nobody will be given a disadvantage. Okay, that doesn't mean that sections those are deserving, marginalized, will be given special attention, affirmative action under Article 15. That is why any reservation related legislations come, 15 and 16 will be amended. Same EWS legislation, I think it's 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act that actually amended 15 and 16. Okay, so to give this EWS entry, at the same way Nari Shakti Vandana Adhiniyam, it also has got I think that the amendment has been made to Article 15 and 16 also in that regard. I'm not really sure, but there were some fundamental rights having amendments. So keep an eye on that. 15 is regarding education, 16 is regarding opportunity in public employment. Abolition of untouchability. Yeah, it's prohibited, punishable by law. Abolition of titles. This is very important. State cannot confer titles. But at the same time, achievements, awards like Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan, these are not titles. And military titles like generals, brigadiers, those are also not titles. And academic distinctions like doctorate, those things are not titles. So they are not titles and they do not come under Article 18. So there is an exception. Citizens cannot accept titles from foreign state. No title shall be used as social privileges. But at the same time, those conferred with Bharat Ratna does get some perks, some social perks, but it's an exemption under this. So that is there. Keep an eye on that. Not everything comes under titles. Titles have got exceptions, and this includes awards like Padma Bhushan, Bharat Ratna, etc. So keep that in mind. Then moving on, this is the basic fundamental right, and I think this is all that you need to study about article. Right to equality. It's from Article 14 to 18, and 14 says about equality before law and equal protection of law, and you need to know the differences, because we have seen in the past questions have been asked particularly on these sort of differences, as in what is due process of law, and in that option procedure established by law was also given, because they're connected, but it is the same thing. As in equality before law is a basic principle for equal protection of law, or in fact I could say that equal protection of law is an improvement upon equality before law policy or philosophy. So there is equality before law in equal protection of law and more. So this is a subset of this. That's it. No need to overthink about that. Just have an idea. Article 14 to 18, these articles and equality before law and equal protection of law. That's it. Then, which one of the following reflects the most appropriate relationship between law and liberty? This is something that you won't be studying in any questions, but having the or political outlook or basic sense, that I wouldn't say basic sense, that I'm not taking it for granted, but if you're having an idea that how actually society works, you can easily arrive at this answer. And it's very easy if you go through the sentences given, and UPSC is expecting you to have this level of perception, ideas when it comes to policy making or the working of the society in general. So this is sort of a very interesting question. You can expect questions like this, and don't worry, at first sight it will be hard for everybody, because there will be at least two options that are difficult to eliminate, as in we'll be arriving at a 50-50 deadlock. There's a good chance for that, but this is interesting. Have a cool head and approach it. I don't recommend leaving these kind of questions, because these are very rewarding, because you don't need to study anything. But if you get the language, if you go through the PYQs, it's very easy. You can solve it in less than 20 seconds. So that is where PYQ becomes more important. Cool head becomes even more important, and not relying on your knowledge, excessive reliance on your knowledge actually helps. Be there in the examination hall, ready to face any question in such a way that you are very light-hearted and light-headed. You shouldn't be revising things when you are actually dealing with questions. This is one such question where having a cool head really helps. Let's go through this. If there are more laws, there is less liberty. There is good chance of that. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Imagine if there are more traffic laws or more laws regarding movement of people, there will be less liberty. Liberty doesn't mean just freedom alone. Liberty, in its textbook format, the meaning is ability to develop oneself fully. That's liberty. Meaning freedom is essential for that. Not just freedom, other things are also needed. So liberty doesn't entirely mean freedom. Liberty means ability to develop oneself fully. So if there are more laws, there is less liberty. Okay, there is chance for that. But imagine there are more laws that are actually good. As in the laws regarding maternity care or welfare of person with disability, things like that, transgender rights. If there are more laws on that regard, can we say that there is less liberty? No, this is a case if the laws are not good or restrictive in nature. But what if they are positive in nature? This could be wrong. Okay, so this is not a very right thing when you are considering the combinations, like all the combinations. If the laws are good, then there is not a necessary condition that there will be less liberty. If there are no laws, there is no liberty. That's an extreme statement. That is, there are no laws, there is no liberty. Okay, if at first sight it doesn't really make any sense, but if you look at it, okay, we live in a lawless land, then actually the ability to develop oneself fully won't actually be there. Imagine a place where we live in a wilderness, complete lawlessness. We will be in a constant state of fear from attack from anybody, not just humans, animals, everybody. So, and there is no law of the nature, or there is no such law. It's very difficult to maneuver or live in such a world. So that's quite probable. If there is liberty, laws have to be made by the people. That's not a necessary condition. It could be made by the people, or it could be based on morality. That again, it's made by the people. But this sentence doesn't really make much sense. If laws are changed too often, liberty is in danger. It is also again not a necessary condition. Imagine a state which had very draconian laws and that are being changed with changing governments. Then we cannot say that liberty is in danger. Their liberty actually flourishes. So this again is not true. This again is not true. This again is also not true. But this can be true. See the question. That is, if there are no laws, there is no liberty. Actually, that is true. This is a very extreme statement, but that is one of the rare occasions where we are actually able to eliminate the other ones based on the practical scenarios, and then we arrive at an answer that is an extreme statement. This is the answer. So 40 is B. There are no laws, there is no liberty. Think about that. If there is no traffic signal and everybody is moving like on their own pace, there is a good chance that there will be no freedom of movement for anybody. You can imagine a signal, a very busy junction where there are no traffic lights and nobody to control the traffic. Then there will be complete chaos and there will be no liberty for anybody. Everybody will be stuck. So that's the case. Moving on, next question. Ideal of a welfare state in Indian constitution is enshrined in its. This is slightly tricky because the ideal of welfare state is kind of mentioned in preamble with the justice, mentioning of socio-economic justice, political justice. DPSP, it's like a rule book that is given to the state to ensuring the social, economical, political, and all sort of welfare measures, directive, protection of animals, even the wildlife, things like that. It's a very large generalistic directive. So a welfare state, we can interpret that it is in preamble also there is mentioning, but not explicitly given. In directive principles also, it's not explicitly, it may not be explicitly given, but the whole policy is based on that. Fundamental rights, it doesn't really addresses the case of welfareness. It's just about protection of basic human rights. That is, it's about the dignity, right to life, those sort of things. It doesn't really create a welfare state. Of course, fundamental rights can be a prerequisite for a welfare state, but it doesn't necessarily encompasses the whole idea of a welfare state. 7th schedule is basically list, union list, state list, and concurrent list. It doesn't really mean a welfare state. It's basically for the ease of administration through separation of powers. That's it. Fundamental DPSP. Again, remember, if things like welfare state, those sort of policies, or anything that is very deep or detailed is given, there is a good chance it will be from DPSPs. Even if you are not very aware about DPSPs, and in the options there is usual options like preamble, fundamental rights, fundamental duties are given, there is a good chance that anything that is asked regarding welfare, justice, those sort of things will be included in directive principles of state policy. But I don't recommend that strategy with taking that assumption. It should be used as a last resort only. First of all, you have to study what all are the entries in the DPSPs. I know it's a bit lengthy thing. Even I am finding it very difficult to remember the entries onto the DPSPs and the articles. But try to study them, or at least have an idea that such a thing is mentioned in DPSP. So it's very easy. Again, welfare and DPSP, they are like synonymous. Go for that only as a last resort if you don't know anything. And in option, if something about welfare, social, or statecraft, bureaucracy is mentioned, the laws are mentioned, then it will be most likely DPSP. I'll show you this is a basic thing. You will get it from anywhere. This is from Lakshmikant only. So, directive principles of state policy from article 36 to 51. These divisions are not based on, constitution doesn't mention any of these. These are actually some based on some scholarly work that they are being divided based on socialistic principle, Gandhi principle, etc. This is for ease of understanding. Other than that, these are not mentioned in the constitution. Okay, be clear about that. Then article 38, welfare of people. It's very much here. Ensures right to educate means again welfare, free legal aid, welfare, justice actually. Right to work, education. Yeah, that's is. See, right to work, education, public assistance in certain cases. This is somewhat similar to fundamental rights only. Right to work, education, similar to article 21. So the 41 actually, article 21 and article 41 has got a lot of similarity in that. Just and human conditions of work, maternity relief, things like that. See the kind of details that DPSP is going into. Participation of workers in the management of industries. Such a detail is mentioned, and that's those things all comes under the DPSPs and the socialistic principles. Just have an idea about that. UPSC, I don't think is gonna ask a question as in which all belong to the socialistic principles of DPSP. There is a very less chance for that, but just have a general idea that these are the things, these are the DPSPs that have a socialistic underpinning. Organization of village panchayat, promotion of cottage industries, Gandhian principles, promote educational work, organize agriculture, animal husbandry, and there is prohibit intoxicating drinks that are harmful to health. See, this is mentioned as in banning of liquor and drugs, things like that, banning or prohibiting the consumption and discouraging the consumption. So it's basically article 47. The liquor policies that are aimed at reducing the consumptions are basically giving power to the article 47. Then 50, separate judiciary from executive, explicitly mentioned. Such a question is asked in 2020, I guess. 2020, this question has been asked. But at the same time, this particular question, ideal of a welfare state, has been asked in 2016 or something. The kind of reputation from DPSP is like very much too high. Either DPSP or fundamental rights or fundamental duty or preamble or everything. So that is there. Just have an idea about these. These were not originally part of the DPSPs. These were added by later amendment. 43B, promotion of promote cooperatives and protection of environment. This protection of environment is added in 48A through 42nd Amendment Act. That time the mini Constitution Act, I would say. 48A, environment protection is there. But at the same time, in Article 21, there is a right to clean environment also is there. So if a question is being asked about which gives the right to clean environment, then you should be going with Article 21. But if protection of environment in general is given, it's DPSP. Then free legal aid, 42nd A, yeah. Free legal aid, and government, as in the executive has given the power through the executive and legislative have given the power through the NALSA Act. So National Legal Services Authorities Act, it is under this free legal aid DPSP directive and based on NALSA Act. Then our all favorite main features of the rule of law. We have been discussing about few things recently. If you have been observing clearly, you could have seen the trend, like there is repetition of constitution, like what is a constitutional government, then what is the rule of law, then again there are questions on the lines of rule of law. These are all British definitions or British form of governance. So this rule of law, this is something you won't be studying as such, but you need to have an idea. Again, we will be writing answers in main that this violates the rule of law, things like that. So assume that in reality these rule of law or whatever that is being asked, like equality before law, are in principle followed by in India on paper, but at the same time they are not strictly followed by rule of law alone. We are having other things, like in case of equality before law, there is equal protection of law. Same way in rule of law also, it's not strictly rule of law. We have got a different form of a slightly positive approach, a more generalized, nuanced approach of rule of law is being followed. So that is there. Anyways, just consider rule of law. Rule of law means what? A land where laws are supreme or treated supreme. So there obviously should be limitation of powers. As in, imagine a body, a person, a group of people who are actually very powerful and they are above law. Then this whole rule of law crumbles. The whole system of rule of law crumbles upon its own. Then equality before law, it's a must. If laws have to be powerful and implementable, then there should be equality before law. If the laws are bent for the powerful and they are implemented in a draconian way over the marginalized section, then there is no equality before law, and then there is no rule of law. That's basic lawlessness and arbitrariness and anarchy. So there is this equality before law is a must. Limitation of power is a must. People's responsibility to the government. How come people's responsibility to the government become a part of rule of law? There is a less chance for that. Liberty and civil rights, obviously it should be a part of rule of law. Otherwise, what's the whole point? Imagine if there are laws about everything except for violence against other people, and in a land where untouchability is not illegal, or even murder or assault is not illegal, then, or basic human rights or labor rights are not there, then there is no rule of law. That's again is a lawless land. So that's the other thing. So there should be civil right. 1, 2 and 1, 2, 4 should be there. So we can eliminate these two and choose between these two. This seems quite tricky because people's responsibility to the government, how come it's a rule of law? Like whether or not people responsible to the government, people are not responsible to the government. In fact, the government is the one responsible to the people. It's the other way around. In practicality, things seems different, but on paper that's how it should be, because we are the ones electing them and they are the ones, they are public servants, they are supposed to be serving us. So people responsible to the government is not the case. Government is the one responsible to the people. So eliminate that. And eliminating 3, and okay, yeah, we have arrived at the answer as C. So that's it. I'll give you a few principles of rule of law. Just have an idea about that. Just like I said, there is supremacy of law, then equality before law, accountability of government, fair and just legal procedures. Yeah, if the legal procedures are not fair and just, then there is no rule of law. Protection of fundamental rights, independent judiciary. Imagine a judiciary that is not at all independent and it's biased, then there is no rule of law. Transparency, predictability of laws, access to justice. Yes, These are all basic principles, and I don't think this is an exhaustive list, but going through this gives you an idea that what is rule of law in general, and that is all is required. You don't have to study what all political scientist opinions about rule of law or anything. Just go through these and generate an idea, a mental picture of rule of law, and then you should be able to get it. Okay, what is rule of law? There should be legal procedures that are fair, then equality should be there, protection of fundamental rights should be there, access to justice should be there, and independent judiciary should be there. That's it. And that's how you internalize the ideas. The same way, internalize articles like 21, 19 and DPSPs. Just internalize it. Go through their principles. Just go generate a mental picture. Okay, rule of law is kind of like a ball that has got these sort of dots including protection of fundamental rights, access to justice, things like that. So that's how you internalize it. Moving on. Which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? Okay. By now, I think everybody will be having an idea about it. Right away, you will be knowing the answer also. But we'll go through the elimination method. Article 19, okay, it's right to freedom of speech and expression. There is speech, and we can think of like marrying somebody as an expression of oneself. Okay, maybe a very diluted interpretation of Article 19 can mean right to marry. This is our logical approach. Of course, you might know the answer, and this is very factual. We can easily crack it factually. Article 21, right to life and liberty. Okay, one's life, one's liberty. So it's basically their choice to marry somebody, and it's basically liberty and their right to life. Okay, makes sense. So these two are actually valid. 25, if you know that, it's cultural and educational rights. Right to freedom of religion, right to freedom of religion. And in that, okay, there is no mentioning of marrying somebody or anything of that sort. It's a right to freedom of religion. Okay, you may overthink that, okay, what if this thing is interfaith marriage or something like that, and the religious underpinning is there. Actually, there is no religious underpinning for this right to marry. Okay, it has nothing to do with religion. And the entries in 25 is that one can profess, practice and propagate one's own religion. And Article 26 is regarding the collective management of religion, as in the government can throw upon Hindu religious institutions for social reforms, things like that, and state can intervene. And at the same time, there are entries like protection from paying taxes for religious institutions, things like that. So Article 25 doesn't really have any mention about one's right to marry or anything. Article 29, right to, these are basically minority rights, and again, that is minority right, and these are religious rights. So this doesn't make much sense compared to these two. And again, Article 19, freedom of speech and expression, right to life and liberty. Rather than speech and expression, marrying somebody is more aligned with right to life. So that's how we arrive at the answer as Article 21. Article 21 is actually very broad. Like I said, I'll show you again. It encompasses a lot of things. That includes right to dignity, right to reputation, right to dignity and right to reputation. These are two things, and two different case laws have been there for these. Have been put under Article 21. Then there is right to clean environment. These things like that are there. So everything in that's what comes under right to marry. Again, right to access to internet is also there for commerce. That's also under Article 21. So I've put that right to privacy. Yeah, right to privacy is there. Right to livelihood, right to clean environment, right to legal aid. This comes under a DPSP also. This is under Article 21. Right to speedy trial, right against handcuffing. Don't confuse it with Article 20 or 22. Then reputation, right to internet, right to die with dignity. This is very important. Passive euthanasia. And I have attached the case laws. You just have to go through the case laws. Especially, this is very famous case law. Potoswami case is like the landmark judgment. Right to privacy. Then right to speedy trial. Hussain Ara Khatun. This case is related with the PIL, public interest litigation. Being a procedure in Indian judiciary. Right to legal aid. Then custodial torture. Right to livelihood. Then there is Maneka Gandhi case about right to travel abroad. Once again, I am reminding you, right to travel abroad is our right under Article 21, but right to travel within the country is right under Article 19. Okay, have an idea. abroad is 21, and within the country domestic is 19. Right to clean environment, very important. MC Mehta case, it's very important. Have a very good idea about that. Then right to shelter, right to education. Earlier it was a DPSP, then it was added as a fundamental right in under 21A. So right to reputation, right to die with dignity. This is by Common Cause Union of India. Quoting this really helps. This is a recent case, and it's very important in mains. And I think in prelims, if such a question comes, I don't think you need to refer anything else. If anything regarding right to life, in the past we have been discussing, and with our repeated discussions, that's all is needed. You don't need to refer right to 21 again. Just go through these cases and that's it. That's it, very easy. Just like that, you're conquering one or two questions of upcoming prelims. It's such easy thing when it comes to polity. That's how I say that sometimes spending a 15-minute or 20-minute gives you much more reward than spending 3 hours straight studying a topic from cover to cover. This is how you can do it. Build a core structure and raise some platforms. That's what I said. Some core pillars should be raised. For example, if fundamental right is there, just raise some core pillars like Article 19, 21 and 15, 16, those kind of things. Then inside that, fill them with other knowledge. So go by iterations. Don't try to make a whole building right away. Just go brick by brick. That really helps. So that's how you can do that. You can study one article or one fundamental right one day, then the other day. That's one easy way, so that you don't tire yourself out, and you will be able to much more go through this process bit more easily with a peace of mind. You don't have to rush. Right now you have time. You don't have to rush, and you don't have to overperform. You need to maintain this energy up until the last day of prelims. Okay, that's the kind of thing we need to have. People will be going all out, all in during these times, and they will be losing their energy post February. The February dip is a reality because people will be burned out by February. But you need to be at your peak from February. So keep that in mind. So that's it. Then right to internet. See, there is a nuance for this. Right to internet as part of access to life and occupation is a fundamental right. But right to internet is not a fundamental right, because internet can be suspended on the grounds of security, national security or public law and order. That is there. Emergency medical care. These are all quotable under in mains, and these things are very nuanced. Like right to emergency medical care is also right to life thing. You can actually understand that. But right against arbitrary arrest, things like that can make it a little confusing, especially if arrest and detention article 22 is given. So just keep an eye on that. A constitutional government, yeah. This particular question has been asked in 21, I guess, and this particular question is from 2015 or 2018. I don't remember exactly. So the same question has been repeated in a different format. Very easy question. Constitutional government means a government that is run based on a working constitution. Okay. Government by legislature, it's not necessary. Popular government need not be. Multi-party government need not be. A single party government with a constitution can be a constitutional government. Limited government, exactly. A constitutional government is a limited government because the constitution sets the limits within which the organs of government can operate. So that's basic. A constitutional government need not have a written constitution. All it needs to have is a constitution, and that constitution, having that constitution itself limits the government, because anything that government is supposed to do or is going to do or is doing should be within the limits of constitution. That's why it is a limited government. So that's it. Constitutional government is a limited government. Have an idea? That's it. This is a very nuanced question. And one more thing, this particular question has raised some eyebrows when UPSC released the key, because when you are familiar with the UPSC language, and by reading this question, we obviously tend to make a assumption, which is usually 90% of the time is right only. But these are some questions where those assumptions fall short. But I don't recommend you change your logic or anything based on that, because that's going to do a lot more damage than any good. Okay, I'll tell you in detail. With reference to Legislative Assembly of a state in India. Legislative Assembly, okay. Not Parliament, Legislative Assembly. Governor makes a customary address to members of the House at the commencement of the first session of the year. Yeah. The same way there is president address also, special address that is there, special address with the joint sitting, that's in the case of parliament. So here governor makes a customary address to members of the house of the commencement of the first session of the year. It is true. Okay, in the case of president, first session of the year, then budget, and first session after the general election in parliament, things like that are there. I'll get into the details. Okay, anyways, this is true. When a state legislature does not have a rule on a particular matter, it follows Lok Sabha rule on that matter. At first reading, and going by the UPSC language, usually the framing and things like that tend to be wrong. And most aspirants who are actually been like expert in these, in prelims, they thought this would be wrong, and can't blame them, including myself, can't blame them. Even I would say that this is wrong only, because it doesn't really make much sense. Okay, if state legislature does not have a rule on a particular matter, it follows the Lok Sabha rule. It seems very far-fetched. State legislature can make their own laws. Why should they depend on Lok Sabha for that? So that is there. This is where having some understanding can backbite you. But if a person who doesn't know anything about anything, they will say that, okay, if state legislature does not have any role, okay, they can follow Lok Sabha rule. Actually, this is right. This is right according to UPSC key, but there have been a lot of confusions about this. Okay, some people might say that, okay, this is right away true, but it's not for many, especially when you are actually dealing the question or the exam, when you are not factually approaching the question, which I don't recommend. You need to have a certain logic, and this is one area where the logic can fail. I'm actually saying this as a testament to the fact that logic, our assumptions, things can fail. But it's not about being 100% accurate. It's all about being more than 90% accurate. We are left with either no option or 90% accuracy. I am sticking for the 90% accuracy. 100% is not possible. It's a risk, as in don't expect that, but you need to develop the 90% accuracy by having an idea about UPSC language, then the way the questions are structured, things like that. And of course, fact and content does matter. This is true according to UPSC, but if I was the one writing this examination, I would have marked this wrong. If again such a question is coming, I would again, not this exact one, if such a question is again asked, I would be skeptical of it, and I will tend towards marking it wrong again, knowing that UPSC has made it right, yet still I am not going to change my logic, because changing my logic will alter everything. So be very careful about that. Set your logic in such a way that it's universally applicable, and don't change it often. Okay, there will be exemptions to everything, but look at those numbers. If you are getting 10 questions accurate with the logic and you are losing 2 or 3, stick to that logic. That logic works. It means that the logic is working. So that's it. The answer is no. Nothing more to explain, but I'll give you a few things. This is not something that we usually deal with, but remember those articles. 87 and 176 are important actually. So 87, special address by president, first session after general election, then first session of each year, and then I think there is a budget. If budget is also there, there is also the president address, special address. But these are the important ones. After the general election, first session after a general election, a new government is formed, then there will be a special address, and first session of each year, that is there. Then in case of governor, it's 176. This is 87. This is 176. First session after general election and commencement of first session. Or in case of state having legislative council, okay, same way, same as they are summoned for a joint sitting. Here also, if the state is bicameral, then it will have legislative council also. So they will be assembled together. So that's it. 87 and 176, special address by president and governor. India, separation of judiciary from executive is enjoined by, again, we know that it's a very detailed procedure, or very specifics are mentioned, and of course DPSP is there. Going by that logic, we can say DPSP would be there. But yeah, preamble of the constitution, there is no special explicit mentioning of separation of judiciary. There are explicit mentioning of social, economic equality, things like that. 7th schedule, it's not separation of judiciary from executive, it's distribution of power between the organs of government, like the federating units and the union government. So this is not there. Conventional practice, it's not a conventional practice, so that is not there. If you know that it's not preamble, then it's directly DPSP. You don't have to know whether it's in DPSP, but we can know that it's not in the 7th schedule, and it's not. The conventional practice is not the right answer for this, and preamble it's not there, so we can arrive at the answer. But actually, if you if you remember, I just discussed right now, Article 50, it's explicitly mentions separation of judiciary from the executive. So it's a DPSP. Look at this. This is Article 50, separate judiciary from executive. Just take a screenshot of this and, dedicate some time here and there when you're waiting in a line or, having food or doing something leisurely, go through this. That's how you internalize it. Don't sit and study DPSP for 2-3 days and then forget it. Just have this as in your folder as a photo or a screenshot. Then go through this. Fundamental rights, DPSP. Fundamental duties, preamble. This. Whatever the subject you are studying, dedicate some 5 to 10 minutes every day for these sort of things. Having it in one place really helps. That's why I kept a note like this. Then I go through this. So it's very easy for that. If you're traveling in a bus also, this comes really handy. Just suggestions I'm making. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with Lok Sabha in. Okay. This is where your political understanding really comes into the picture. Okay. The matter of creating new all India services. If you know that it's an exclusive power of Rajya Sabha, then we can eliminate that. Even if you don't know that, it's fine. Okay. You don't know whether this is an exclusive power of Rajya Sabha. Okay, fine. We are dealing it completely logically. Amending the constitution. Yeah. Remember, Article 368, the procedure. Anybody, even a private member can put the motion for amendment of constitution. Okay. And does it mention anything like you need to get the prior permission of president? No, that is not mentioned. Whether it should be introduced in Lok Sabha only, like a money bill. No, it's not mentioned. Any member, anybody without the permission of president can present the amendment bill under Article 368, and president has, once it's passed, president has to give the assent. So basically, they are on the same page when it comes to amending the constitution. Removal of government. Obviously, we know that Rajya Sabha is a continuing house and it's not directly elected by the people. There is no confidence motion or anything in Rajya Sabha. It's an exclusive power of Lok Sabha. So this is exclusive power of Lok Sabha. Wrong. Making cut motion. Again, it's regarding budgeting, and budgeting is an exclusive area. Budgeting, non-confidence. These are all exclusive areas of Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha can discuss on budget, things like that, and they are part of committees also. But taking actual decisions regarding budget entirely vests with the Lok Sabha, and also conference of the government is also entirely vested with the Lok Sabha. So if you don't know, you will be knowing these two things, basics. You know that all day services and amending the constitution. If you know the fact that amending the constitution doesn't have any special mentioning about it should be introduced in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha or anything, you know the answer. This is a special power or exclusive power of Rajya Sabha. Okay, just remember that. And I've actually made a list to make it a little easier for you to know that exclusive powers of Lok Sabha. Of course, we know money bill. Money bill is directly related to conference, and so non-conference motion, finance bill, budgeting, then removal of speaker and deputy speaker. Obviously, presiding officers of these particular officers, they have a special power because speakers and deputy speakers are not connected to Rajya Sabha, but vice president is connected to Rajya Sabha because chairman of Rajya Sabha is connected to Lok Sabha because he is a vice president. Okay, so there is a connection there. Exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha. This is important. People tend to forget it because when you consider Rajya Sabha, though it's named the upper house, when it comes to actual power, it tends to have lesser power in compared to Lok Sabha. So we tended to forget that they have some exclusive powers. So these are the exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha. All India services under Article 312, very important. Then authorize Parliament to legislate on state subjects. This is again very, very important. That Parliament can legislate on state subject if Rajya Sabha authorizes it with a special majority under Article 249. 312. Then removal of vice president. The process of initiation or impeachment of vice president starts from Rajya Sabha only. Lok Sabha participates later with a simple majority. So this is important, and most important is Parliament to legislate on state subject list. Okay, things that are mentioned in the state subject, and Parliament has to legislate on that. Rajya Sabha has to move the motion and pass the motion under special majority. Article 249, 312. You can imagine why these safety nets are placed, because Rajya Sabha is called the Council of States, so protecting the interest of states. So that is why primacy is given to Rajya Sabha in these matters. Okay. Then powers where both have equal powers. Ordinary bills and constitutional amendment bills, they have same power, but not money bill. Proclamation of emergency. Approval of proclamation of emergency. If emergency is being put for approval, then the both houses are having same power. But removal of what or the revocation of emergency that is in place requires only simple majority in Lok Sabha. Okay, that is there. Approval, proclamation of emergency, that is same power only. Then removal of judges, removal of impeachment of president. But at the same time, impeachment of vice president, Rajya Sabha has got special power. It's not the same. Then ordinances, election of president, yeah, joint committee participation, yeah, that's it. Again, if possible, take a screenshot of this and you can actually use it and refer to that easily. But it's very easy. Just imagine that no confidence motion, money bill are exclusive powers of Lok Sabha and exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha are these, then everything else will be same only. Okay, that's how you study, and that you don't have to study all of these, just study these and assume everything else is right. Simple as that. Moving on, next question. Okay, which of the following are correct? See, in 2024 we had a same question, very similar question regarding the lapsing of bills, but it was slightly on the difficult side with the options, but the idea remains same. Just crystallize the lapsing of bills procedure and the conditions into, or make them a table. I have made one. I'll show you that. Just learn that and that's it. So this is a repeated theme, but not very much repeated, because this has been last asked in 2016, I guess, and after that it has been asked in 2018. But the 2016 question was relatively easy compared to the 2018 one. Okay, bill pending in Lok Sabha lapses on its prorogation. So prorogation. Actually, a bill pending in Lok Sabha lapses on its dissolution. If that was the case, then yeah, pending in Lok Sabha, if Lok Sabha is dissolved, it lapses. But this is where attention to detail is important. Prorogation means the session is adjourned, meaning the session only the session ends, not the chamber or the parliament, the Lok Sabha is dissolved or anything. Example, if there is some bill that has been presented and is pending in Lok Sabha in the monsoon session, then it could be taken up in the winter session. No issues for that. Prorogation means ending of the session. Okay, that's all. And the Lok Sabha remains intact. But at the same time, if it's given as lapses on its dissolution, then it's right. If that particular Lok Sabha is dissolved, then that bill also dissolves with the Lok Sabha. It's just prorogation. So have an idea about prorogation and dissolution. Prorogation means, if imagine end of monsoon session, then the house is prorogued. Then if the house is that is been dissolved for general election, then it's dissolved. Okay, if in next 2029 we are having an election, then it is dissolution. Or in case the government falls under non-confidence motion, then again it's dissolution. A bill pending in Rajya Sabha which has not been passed by the Lok Sabha shall not lapse on dissolution of Lok Sabha. That is true. A bill that is not passed by Lok Sabha and that is pending in Lok Sabha and the Lok Sabha has been dissolved, that doesn't affect the bill, because the bill is pending in Rajya Sabha only. This is an easy table that I have made so that it's not very complicated. Pending in Lok Sabha, it lapses, that's true. If the Lok Sabha is dissolved and that is pending, then it automatically gets dissolved, lapses. But at the same time, one more thing you need to remember is that there should be notices for introducing these bills. If an MP has given a notice for introducing a particular bill, that particular bill, if that particular notice is given and the bill has not yet been presented, the notice given for that bill lapses on prorogation. In prorogation itself, that lapses. Okay, not dissolution, prorogation, pending notices lapses. But at the same time, in UK, if a house is been prorogued, the pending bills also lapses. That's the difference between UK and Indian Parliament. That's one difference, you need to be aware of that. Passed by Lok Sabha, pending in Rajya Sabha, then when the Lok Sabha is dissolved, of course it lapses, because the Lok Sabha that passed that bill is no longer in power. So the bill becomes void and it lapses. Pending in Rajya Sabha and not passed by Lok Sabha yet. No problem. Rajya Sabha is a continuing chamber, there is no dissolution. So something pending in Rajya Sabha doesn't really have any issue. Passed by both houses awaiting President assent. No issues, because they are both passed, only President assent is waiting, so it can be given. President for reconsideration, yeah, no problem, because new parliament can reconsider it. Joint sitting, this particular question has been asked in 2024. No, if President has called for a joint sitting of a bill and if Lok Sabha is dissolved, no issue, joint sitting overrides Lok Sabha dissolution. So these are the conditions where the bill doesn't dissolve, bill doesn't lapse, and these are the conditions. Assume the conditions where it lapses. As in pending in Lok Sabha, it lapse, passed by Lok Sabha, pending in Rajya Sabha, lapse. All conditions, it won't lapse. Simple as that. So I really hope you are getting some idea regarding these questions, and you are able to understand how to approach these questions as well as how to streamline your studies. So if you need any more help, get in touch with Gallant IAS, and thereby you can connect to me, and we'll have a more clear-cut or bespoke mentorship programs for you. So things like that will be included, and I'll show you a few of the repeated themes in the coming sessions. Next week onwards, we'll be starting our economy session. So stay tuned for that. We'll be following similar and much improved model of presentation for that. So stick to that, and I really hope everybody is benefiting from this program. Thank you so much. Study well, and we are going to clear it this time. Okay. Thank you.